Welcome to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and in this video, I want to talk about the possibilities for who will and won't be going to the upcoming major in Berlin for NA specifically. I'll probably also talk about what positions teams can place in, but most importantly, if they can or can't place in the top four and how they'll do that and whatnot. This is the main graphic I'll be referring to, courtesy of Sraboni and Wrath on Twitter's, where I'm looking at this. So this is again most of the information that we need, and I will be referencing other stuff. But again, this is the most important thing to look at. But I'm also going to pull up really quick the standings. So this is the order. This is basically the same order that they are in the graphic, but I think the only exception is that Space Station is more likely than Dark Zero, even though they're below them on the standings right now because of who they play against. So we'll talk about that later. Let me just, I'll read them down the line. That's usually what I do. We have from 1st through 10th place, Oxygen, Parabellum, Sonics, Astralis, Xset, Dark Zero, Space Station, TSM, Beast Coast, and Mirage. And Mirage and Beast Coast, they can't go to the major. Mirage can't even get out of last place. Beast Coast can climb up to 5th place, but again, you have to be in top 4 to go to the major. And Oxygen is not locked into 1st place, but they are locked into top 4, and I think actually locked into top 3. So they'll certainly go into the major, be going to the major. And the remaining 7 teams are fighting for those last 3 spots. And okay, so I assume you're looking at the screen now, and maybe you're not. Some people might just listen to these videos or whatever. But if you aren't looking at the screen, maybe look at the points if you're at all curious, because they are very significant. There is a very close cluster here, everyone within 2 points of each other from 2nd through 8th place. And so let me tell you the matchups, and in order they are going to be Beast Coast versus TSM, Parabellum versus Sonics, Dark Zero versus Mirage, Oxygen versus Xset, and Astralis versus Space Station. So maybe I'll talk about how the day could progress a little bit. So let's go back to the graphic, and then, let me start with that. Okay, so Beast Coast versus TSM. Again, Beast Coast not actually playing to go to the major. They can climb potentially all the way up to 5th place. And actually, I changed my mind. Let me tell you guys what position any given team can finish in. So this is going to be from top to bottom based on the leaderboard we just looked at, the standings. And okay, so Oxygen can get from 1st through 3rd, Parabellum 1st through 7th, Sonics 1st through 8th, Astralis 1st through 8th as well. So those are the teams that can potentially finish in first place, and 3 of them can fall as low as 7th or 8th, right? Then we have Xset 2nd through 8th, we have Dark Zero 3rd through 9th, and same thing for Space Station and TSM, also 3rd through 9th, and then Beast Coast 5th place through 9th place, and then Mirage guaranteed in 10th place. So, all right, keep those numbers in mind. They might be significant, not really. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, they do kind of matter, especially for seeding and whatnot, but I think you're probably just about as happy to get into the major via being 4th seed as you are any other seed. Okay, so back to Beast Coast versus TSM. So TSM is the least likely team to go to the major of the teams that can still go from NA. So even a regulation win, the full 3 points, doesn't even get them a 50-50 chance of going. So they just have to get those 3 points. If they get 2 points, it's possible, 9%. But realistically, if TSM doesn't beat Beast Coast in regulation, they're just probably not going. So if you're a TSM fan, definitely look for the 3 points there, and then cross your fingers that certain other things happen. They basically have to do better than Dark Zero, Space Station, Xset, and I guess some combination of these other teams. They can't pass Oxygen on points, and because Parabellum and Sonics play each other, they can't pass both of them. They can pass one of them, I suppose, and then can they pass both? They could pass both Astralis and Space Station, who play each other. Both these teams could go into 14 points, and that is an ideal scenario if Space Station beats Astralis in overtime, okay? And then, of course, Space Station only has that 6% chance if that is the case. So, okay, yeah, first game, if TSM doesn't win in regulation, they're probably not going. That probably secures them to not go to the major. Then we have Parabellum versus Sonics. So these two teams, it is pretty much a win and in, but if you lose, you can still go, especially if Sonics beat Parabellum in overtime. Parabellum is still very likely to go, and that is pretty much a doomsday situation for every team below them. For 2 of these teams to take 2 of the slots, it obviously just limits the number of slots remaining for the rest of the teams, and so especially for Space Station, Dark Zero, and TSM, if that does happen, it's really, really bad. So if you're rooting for any of these teams, and maybe even Xset, sort of, then it's very bad, but Xset can just secure secure their position in the major by getting 3 points regardless of what happens in that game. Okay, so that's sort of the second one. Parabellum or Sonics will definitely be secured, and then Parabellum could be pretty likely, and otherwise, maybe Sonics or Parabellum in one of the other situations could go, but again, with only about 20% or 10%, not very likely. And then next game, we have Dark Zero versus Mirage. So again, Mirage not playing for anything except for to play spoiler to Dark Zero. So about a 70% chance if you get the full 3 points is pretty good, and you are playing against Mirage. They've only won 2 games. It is 2 of the more recent games. They beat Beast Coast and they beat Sonics, and the Beast Coast one, I think a little bit of a shock, and especially because Mirage didn't have a win this stage up to that point, but they did beat Beast Coast last stage. But the Sonics one, a massive shock, and Mirage not playing for anything in that game, and Sonics playing to lock in their major spot, and they still can. They just could have done it already. So differing amounts of pressure led to that result, I suppose, is I think the biggest factor in the eyes of the community. And okay, so probably Dark Zero beats Mirage. That's just what the odds suggest. But if Mirage do beat Dark Zero, obviously Dark Zero will not be going to the major, 0%. And even if Mirage gets up to 6 rounds, it's very unlikely for Dark Zero. So if you're rooting for Dark Zero, obviously you want the full 3 points there. You would like for TSM to have not won in regulation, but even if they did, your round differential is better, so they would have to do much better in their game than Dark Zero does. So probably if Dark Zero gets 3 points or Space Station gets 3 points, TSM probably won't be going. Okay, so that's sort of the third game. Then we have Oxygen versus Xset. And so again, Oxygen is going to the major no matter what, and they're also just pretty likely to get first place anyways. Even if they get 0 points, it's still possible to get first place after this playday. But if they get 3 points or 2 points, i.e. a win in any situation, they are just locked into first place. Even if they get 1 point, the only team that could potentially pass them is Parabellum, and it's entirely possible given the round differentials. If Parabellum did win in regulation and Oxygen lost in overtime, I think it would be guaranteed that Parabellum would pass them because of their round differential being identical now, and that would mean if that situation happened that Parabellum's round differential would become better and Oxygen's would become worse. Okay, so not super important what place Oxygen actually gets. What is important though is that Oxygen beats Xset if you are rooting for any of the teams below Xset. So that goes a really, really long way to making it possible for one of these 3 teams to make it to the major. Again, that is Oxygen beating Xset, and that can really be in any circumstance. Even if Xset gets only 2 points, they're still not that likely. 37% chance. It's not astronomically against them, but it's pretty unlikely, right? Less than 40% is not great. And so, yeah, you just do not want Xset to get the full 3 points because they will take one of those spots if they do get the full 3 points. And okay, I think that's pretty much everything for that game. Again, maybe I don't recall if I mentioned this, but obviously pretty much everyone on the left side, their fate is in their hands. Oxygen already made it, doesn't really matter. And then these 2 teams, whoever wins is going to the major. But again, whoever loses still could go. And so that is, one of these 2 teams will be taking a spot for sure. And then these 2 teams, their fate is still in their hands. They just need to win in regulation. Astralis can probably win in overtime and still go. There's just a lot of round differential stuff that it breaks down to in that case, I believe. But, still pretty likely. And okay, so I guess, yeah, to get back to what I was saying, you really, really want Xset to not get the full 3 points if you are one of these teams. And then final game of the day, Astralis versus Space Station. So this looked like it could come down to being a very banger game at the very start of the stage, and then in the middle it looked like maybe not, and now it looks like it could be very significant. Again, it could come down to just being a straight up win and in. I don't think there's a situation... Maybe there's a situation where it could line up that both of these teams could go. I'm not 100% sure, but obviously given that if Space Station wins and then these are non-zero numbers, Astralis could go. It could line up. I'm not sure how that exactly breaks down, but pretty unlikely that both Space Station and Astralis will be going, which sucks if you are a fan of both of these teams. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying before, a pretty banger game it looks like it might come down to, and certainly there will still be a slot available. It could come down to it. At that point, Space Station might be locked out of the major. Could be, but certainly because Astralis has this 100% chance of going if they win in regulation, there will still be a final slot left open at the end, and it might not be possible for Space Station to go, but it could be possible that it's either Astralis will go or they will not go if they lose. So keep an eye out for that, but it looks like probably it will just be a win and in at the very end of the day, whereas last stage, it was TSM versus Sonics, I think is the very last game of the stage, which looked like it should have been a banger on paper, given that it was the reigning world champions versus the reigning NAL champions. But it turned out that they were fighting for like 8th place or something, which is kind of sad. It was kind of a fun game to watch. They played on Chalet, pretty good map for both of them, and I think we had the Sonic substitution in that game. But okay, so I think that's sort of how things progressed throughout the day. In terms of who you are rooting for, any team that is lower than another team, you are probably just preying on. Okay, so say you're a TSM fan, you are preying on the downfall of everyone above. Parabellum versus Sonics, you definitely don't want Parabellum to lose in overtime, i.e. Sonics to win in overtime, especially if you're these 3 teams, and you definitely want Oxygen to beat Xset. Those are the 2 biggest things to look out for. And then, I mean, I guess if you're like Space Station or something, you also want Beast Coast to beat Dark Zero and Mirage to beat, for Beast Coast to beat TSM and Mirage to beat Dark Zero, because they are sort of nipping at your heels. But I think in comparison to these 2, I think Space Station's fate is largely in their hands. Dark Zero does have the better round differential than Space Station, but I think it is still possible that because they have the ability to deny Astralis to go, and that's really I think I mentioned it earlier, right? That is the reason that Space Station has the higher % chance of going compared to Dark Zero, who is actually above them on the standings at the moment. And okay, I think that's pretty much all I want to talk about. I think I just went over like 11 minutes or something, which is probably a little bit lengthy for just showing like one single graphic for most of the video. It is what it is. I think everything else I say will probably just be reiterating earlier things. So I guess at this point, let me know who you want to go. I saw a thread on Reddit asking this question, and a bunch of people were saying certain combinations of teams, and they were just like impossible or extremely unlikely. So I don't know, use your head and pick the teams that you want to go based on who could realistically go. Probably don't pick both Parabellum and Sonics, even though it's possible. Probably don't pick both Astralis and Space Station. Probably don't pick any 2 of these 3 teams, but other than that, it'll be Oxygen and 3 of the teams. But yeah, so feel free to leave that below. Otherwise, if you have any other videos that you'd like to see, I guess this stage of the NAL is just about to wrap up, so I have a few more videos to do regarding that. But after that, I don't know. We'll see what I'm going to be up to. But okay, a like and a subscription on this video would be appreciated. I think this was a much requested sort of one. And okay, so with all of that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video.